Jeremy Jones, Pool's premier pundit. Jeremy, how you doing?
Good. How you doing, Mike?
Good, good. So we're having this little discussion. This is Shane Van Boening's Hall of Fame year, and as you know, he's the first U.S.-born player to get into the Hall of Fame since 2018. And you've been around for quite a while. You've seen his whole career. Talk me through, your impressions of Shane. What makes him special? Where did you see him from the beginning of his career to where he is now? What are your thoughts on Shane as the great player that he is?
I think with Shane, it kind of originated with me with hearing a little bit about him. Of course, some action stories. I think whenever Shane was first hitting the scene, 10 ball was starting to become, a little more prevalent in the game as far as on the tournament side of things. So he was going around and, his uncle and a few other people were kind of making games for him. And Shane was just, kind of laying people to waste. But I mean, you hear about that and it seems like anytime someone's kind of new to the scene, it's almost like they're a little more untouchable until they get touched on a little bit. But that just didn't happen to Shane too much at the beginning. And I actually played him a couple times at the Reno Sands tournament is where I really got to meet him as far as playing him. And you could see a lot of talent there, a little different as well. I thought right from the first seeing him, to watch him hit the ball. And, technically he's kind of changed through the years off and on, but he was just very poised, had a lot of confidence around the table. And, just like a lot of players, again, when they first come out, they're real hot and all, but you never know what it's going to evolve into. But it's pretty incredible what did happen with Shane.
Well, let's talk about that because, you're talking about someone, when you talk about the greatest players, and Shane is right up there, you're talking about longevity and consistency and the ability to stay at the top of your game year after year after year, which, as you know, is a really tough thing to do just from the standpoint of, your own, investing into your practice time and playing time and all the young players coming up. It makes it really hard to stay on top. How has he been able to do that?
Well, a lot of willpower, first off. I mean, I think it was willpower that separated him at the beginning, not only with practice and, of course, the time at the table during events, which a lot of players really want to schedule a little more, which is fine, to each his own. But what I mean by willpower is he obviously spent a ton of time on the break. And I think that kind of separated him for a little while. And of course, players came along and learned how to break the balls because of him. Learned even more important how much more important the break really is, especially if you can do it at a high level. But then also, once players started to catch up, Shane's willpower again, in my opinion, putting in the time to just improve just a little bit, because that's what happens when you're such a great player. It's not going to be leaps and bounds of improvements, which can be very hard to work towards because it's not a whole lot of things you're going to see. It's going to be little things over a long time that is going to separate you, which takes a lot of discipline. So I think that's kind of the narrative with Shane itself, discipline.
Yeah. And we know about his break. What else about his game technically? I mean, you're a very technical player. What about his game technically really stands out aside from the break?
Well, and that's what I meant, as far as like technically, whether it be shape got so much better. His cue ball kind of reminded me of a Johnny Archer, to where he was a great player, incredible player, but he got even better just because his cue ball got so much better as far as shape and position. He ended up becoming one of the greatest ever at it. And Shane's kind of the same thing. Safety wise, it's almost, and also almost like a modern day filler, really digging in deep tactically to get better. Kicking at the ball, safeties, what's the right shot, instead of just knowing that, hey, I have this talent to where I can afford a mistake here and there, but that's not how they want to do it.
Right.
They want to clean it up all the way around, and that's where Shane has become one of the best in all areas.
Yeah. Well, he's certainly the greatest, U.S. player of his generation. and one of the top in the world over a long period of time. So, let's look at the big picture of American-born pool players. Let's say over the last 50 years, and you've been around for more than 30 years of that. Where does Shane rank? If you listed and we've asked you to do this, your top 10 American-born players of the last 50 years, where does Shane rank and why?
Well, I mean, I got him at the top. And it wasn't too difficult for me to put him there. Longevity, the dominance of the longevity, and still going, still has a lot left. Now we'll see how long he plays. The careers of pool players are a little different these days, especially the guys at the top.
Yeah.
We've had a lot of guys that played very long times and very successfully, but I don't know if we've ever had someone that was that dominant overall. Especially, it's not just with Americans. We're talking about top Americans, of course, but he just kind of dominated the world, especially when they came to America. But looking at, like I said, improving in all ways, winning a bunch of different disciplines in all kinds of ways as far as that. We all have our favorite formats and different places we like to play, but Shane really made it all very good for him. And, I think it was a pretty easy choice for me at number one for Shane.
Who do you have at number two?
I got Earl Strickland. Earl the Pearl. I think, I say easy as far as Shane, but I mean, Earl's the guy that did make you think about things. Of course, they both have 5 U.S. Opens. Earl has a few more world titles. But yeah, Earl was an incredible guy. I wish he would have played a few more other disciplines just to see him play them a little more often. Because of the few times I did get to see him play one pocket in different games, I really enjoyed it. And he's one of the greatest 8-ball players of all time as well, which is another thing you can say about SVB.
Yeah. Number three.
Nick Varner. The Kentucky Colonel. I just feel like he kept it going. Maybe won a big tournament in 5 different decades. I don't know, 4 different decades. Had some of the most incredible individual years that the game's ever seen. And just never seemed to play himself out of it. He was never out of an event. Never gave up. Like I said, longevity. I know it as well as anyone. He won a world 9-ball title in '99.
Right.
Not sure exactly how old he was at that point, but he was no spring chicken, fighting a lot of youngsters, and actually beat me in the final. We were rooming together that year there in Spain. But just an incredible player for all ways as far as talent and for the sport itself. But if you just talk about on the table, I think Nick's right up there with all of them.
Yeah, I think he must have been close to 50 when you guys were in Spain.
I think so too. I actually meant to look it up last night just to have a little more review on it, but I got a little tired with it. But yeah, I think he might have been over 50. I don't know. It's real close.
I think he's 76 right now, which would make him, right around 50 at the turn of the century. So, just, great at all games and did play at a high level over a long period of time. Who do you have behind him at number 4?
Mike Seagull. The one thing is I didn't really get to play a lot with Mike. That's one of the players on a healthy list of Americans that you sent me to kind of choose from or make this list, and didn't get to play against Mike a whole lot. Of course, a guy I watched play a lot with every tape and every situation I could. But if you just look up his resume, and of course how everyone always talks about Mike, and you just have to have him way up there. Another one of those guys that rarely ever lost when he got to the finals, and can certainly talk a good game as well.
Yeah, he can certainly. Yeah, he'd be in your top 2 if it came to talking. Him and Earl would be pretty tied up at the top. Number 5.
I had Buddy Hall. Buddy Hall, of course, probably maybe number one if he could break the balls like some of them other guys. Not saying he couldn't break, but it was one thing that probably kept him from winning a few more tournaments at times. But after the break, of course, we all talk about, when I say everyone, maybe not Efren, I don't know, but I know I've heard some great things about Buddy out of Efren's mouth before, but every other American always talks about being able to play the rack like Buddy Hall. And I think if today's generation got to see him a little more in his heyday, they'd be saying the same thing.
Yeah. Cue ball control and just playing the rack. There were never too many tough shots for Buddy. He really made racks look easy.
Held up under pressure real well. Sorry, Mike.
Yeah.
I mean, that's another thing. Real good pressure player, just like Nick as well. Great cue ball, but could come with an incredible shot.
Yeah. Who do you have at number 6?
Number 6, I have Allan Hopkins. Allan Hopkins, another one that's just really good in all disciplines. A real competitor. Nick, he's been in another part of the pool world on the business side for some time. But if you're ever, of course, got to play him, he was really fierce at the table, has all the credentials, of course. I think he was up there too. Was it 98 or 99? He won the Camel Pro Billiard Series finale there in Denver, the 10 ball, against a super stacked field.
Yeah.
And just kind of looked like he was supposed to win the event the way he played. So, just an incredible all-around player.
Yeah. Let's round out the top 10. Number 7.
Number 7, the Miz, Steve Miserak. Again, probably a little higher up this list if he didn't, wasn't so savvy on the business side of things in pool and of course loved other things besides playing. I know he loved playing as much as anything, but had other interests. But probably the sweetest stroke and the best bridge I've ever seen in the game. But another one that with all the credentials and a big time player.
Yeah, unbelievably great touch for a guy his size.
Yeah, I was lucky. One of the first road trips I ever took is when he kind of made his way back into the game for some pro tournaments. I believe that was around 1989 or 90. He stepped back in and he won a tournament in Greenville, I think it was, and then came second the next week in Greensboro. And I got to watch some of those being on the road and getting to see just, kind of hiding in the back bleachers, not really letting it, trying to be paid attention to it all, but got to see Miserak really informed there for a few weeks. And you could tell why he's, the Miz, the master.
Yeah. Okay. Number 8.
Johnny Archer.
You played a lot with Johnny. Tell me about his career and his strengths.
Well, really good under pressure. Like I said, a great cue ball. Seemed to always, again, be able to come with a big shot. Personally cost me more money in tournaments than anyone as far as beating me in big situations. He beat me in the final of the U.S. Open. I think one month he beat me hill in the final of 3 different pro events. It was crazy, and some of those we were rooming together, as a matter of fact, as well. But but he was just a guy that didn't. I was around him a lot, and didn't practice much. Just had a real knack of being able to turn it on or keep it turned on from tournament to tournament, and just a real headstrong player with a lot of talent.
Yeah. In your 9th spot,
Rodney Morris, the Rocket. Got Rodney. Probably just simply the most naturally talented player you'll probably ever see. Always something about those lefties. I think, without a little delay in his career there in the late 90s, he was really going to be probably the best player in the world for a piece, if not one of the best for a long, long time. And he still came back to be that, of course, but just the way he was starting to play there in the mid to late 90s, after that U.S. Open win and some stuff. He just did things a little differently than a lot of players, just because of his talent and his belief in what he could do, I think. And, a true entertainer in our sport, and a natural entertainer as well, which is always something special to have.
Yeah, yeah. He didn't shy away from too many shots. And your number 10, he didn't shy away from too many shots either.
Yeah, Kim Davenport, California Kim. I think, of course, not only winning a Player of the Year with one of the greatest years ever in the sport, but just the longevity of being never really up and down. Probably one of the more consistent guys from match to match you'll ever see. If you talk about major titles, maybe a few of those eluded Kim, but I think overall, I mean, he's a major champion without maybe some of those major titles. So I got Kim at number 10.
Yeah, he played, in that era where, every week it was Buddy and Nick and Earl and Efren and Johnny, and it was tough to win a lot of majors in those days. Absolutely,
and we always talk about today's players. They're more understanding the colleague part of things, which is great and all that. But, there's a bit of value to playing with a bunch of, great white sharks that take it personal every time they go tee it up, which is what the older guys were, right? So, it kind of put your teeth into you every match. And so, that was some of the beauty of not only getting to play some of those guys back in the day, but also being a fan of those guys in that era of the game.
Yeah, just watching it. So, yeah, really solid list, JJ, top to bottom. I'm sure you had a lot more players to pick from. Where were your dilemmas?
The dilemma probably, if you just looked at the list you gave me to look at, because there were a lot of newer guys on there, and you'd say, oh man, he just really likes the older guys, but they're a little more complete. The careers, it's a little easier to see in black and white. And I'd like to have another stab at this in 10 or 15 more years or something like that and see what that list looks like. But yeah, I mean, I think I texted you this, that I had me and Corey, myself and Corey right there, just a little interchangeable, maybe at that 9 and 10 or somewhere around that mix. Sure. With Rodney and Kim. I hate to leave somebody out like Corey, of course, the guy who's had such a long career in that top 10, but he's still kicking. He just won an event in Chicago, which was great. So again, any of those mixes could be in there. Yeah. There's some incredible ones that I wish would have seen more of. Reed Pierce, for instance. Once he started to play the Pro Tour, he really started to do really well in it after he adapted to it. I think if he'd have been in there from the mix early in his career, I think we'd have seen possibly a guy wearing a green jacket, and he still may someday.
Yeah. Great stuff, Jeremy. Thank you very much for joining us, as always, and we'll look forward to seeing you again soon.
Thanks, Mike, and it was a lot of fun.